We are All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Ron Phares, and I just want to make sure that this section over here, are you guys comfortable? Are the seats okay? Because I noticed like this section over here is packed, and this section over here is a little bit more sparse, and I feel like I'm going to be reading like this. It feels weird. Anyway, I'm glad you're all here. We are a spiritual community of welcome. We revel. We revel in your identity. We accept the rough bits, honor the tender spots, and bask in one another's light, especially these people over here. There's lots of light they're basking in. This is the dark side of the room. Shadow work over here. Hallelujah's over here. Your presence here is cherished, even if you're not physically present. In fact, if we can take a minute to turn to our folks who are viewing us remotely and give them a friendly hello. We're glad that you're here as well. Happy October, everybody. Yeah. Okay, so I should say, from the perspective of the pulpit, however, I'm squeezing one more day out of September. And I'm doing that because thematically, September has been about us. Getting to know one another, wondering who we are, who we want to be. October will orient us to our ancestors. November will turn us inward and to the earth. And so this is the last Sunday that I get opportunity for now to talk about who we are. And by the way, you may have noticed that I've been using the same call to worship every Sunday, and I'm experimenting with that. October and November will have their own call to worships that I repeat every Sunday of that month. And I'm just going to see how that feels for us. That all said, will you take a breath with me? This is a call to all souls, to your soul, to the sun, to the mountain, to molecules. Will you take another breath with me? This is a call to all souls, the continuum of energetic beings, past and present, all souls, your great-grandmother within you and those who will sit in this place a century from now within you. This is a call to all souls, a bird call, a cricket chirp, a death rattle, an infant's wail. We call here to the choir of life, whose harmony reverberates matter into being and history unfolds. This is a call to our tragedy, our joy, our peace and terror, so that they and we might be embraced and remade here in a harmony that feels like love and sounds like your soul name. This is a call to all souls from the land of the first horse, where the mountains meet the plains and the sky, where countless lives have flourished and faded, flora and fauna, river and rock, a land we have come to and seek to come from, the land of the Ute, Comanche, Arapaho, Apache, Cheyenne, Kiowa, Pawnee, and Lakota, and now you. We call to all souls, to your soul, and invite you into beloved community as expressed in our covenant. As here we promise to welcome all who come to us with acceptance and respect for the differences among us, to practice patience and speak with truth directly and with compassion, to contribute to the community at a level that is healthy for us, to act with loving kindness as best we can at all times, while seeking to promote justice, equity, and compassion. We understand that being a member and friend And being in covenant with a member of the beloved community requires learning and practice. We are all souls. Let us celebrate our community in song.
I had the opportunity to do some reading this week on covenant and promise. One of the things I read said, covenant is both a noun and a verb. It must be both a valuable thing unto itself and contain a process for its constant becoming. Thus, living covenants must do three things. They must convey clear commitments, they must be open to new interpretations, and most importantly, they must be intentionally renewed. As I reflected upon covenant and promise, I realized that for most of my life, I was part of religious communities that were bound together by a creed or common belief that was professed every Sunday as a sort of renewal or commitment to that creed. It was a promise going this direction, a covenant going this direction. Coming to All Souls in 2014, I heard that UUs were bound together through covenant. I wondered how that was practiced here. So being a great introvert, I observed. I joined a group here or there, came to Sunday service occasionally, and pretty much stayed on the periphery. I liked the people and the message from the pulpit, so signed my name in the book a little over a year later in 2015. Signing the book. Did I make a covenant with this community? And did this community make a covenant with me? Is that what that was about? Well, then I read something else by Reverend Sue Phillips in her 2015 paper on covenant. Joining and covenanting are different. Although a person's sense of connection may well deepen once they sign the book, the act of explicit commitment is over the moment their pen lifts the page. Joining happens only once. Covenant and promise are ongoing. So it took years for me to sense that there was a covenant at work in this congregation, or for me to understand what my promise was to this community. My own sense of being in covenant with the people of All Souls was a gradual awakening, and it deepened over the course of the pandemic during some of the toughest times for this congregation. During the pandemic, we also entered an interim time with part-time ministers. Much was being asked of us. All that this congregation had known, Sunday service, RE, gathering in small groups, etc., was changed. To keep All Souls viable required intentional acts of staying in covenant with one another, to live out my promise. Sue Phillips writes again, as congregations, we covenant to affirm and promote the principles. Affirming and promoting shared values is important, but it puts tepid commitment at our collective center, asks virtually nothing of us, and offers virtually nothing. This is not covenanting, it is parallel play. Thought about that. So my initial promise in renewing covenant with this All Souls community changed me during that time. The pandemic and interim years required me to not only show up on the periphery, but to intentionally commit to keeping All Souls viable and moving forward. And it wasn't easy. I mean, how many Zoom meetings and calls and services did we commit to? And we didn't get to see each other, have coffee with each other. Serving on the board required something of me, to not give up and let someone else do this work, to support difficult decisions, and to stay visible and involved. What I saw in myself and in others was not parallel play. I witnessed covenant in action here. So each Sunday, we do have this opportunity to renew our promise to this community as it grows and seeks to be a viable presence for justice in our larger community. Will we be simply a welcome and membership kind of community, or will we be a welcome and covenant community? It's us. It's up to us. It's our intentionality. My covenant now is this way. That's what it is, not just this, not in my silo anymore. So I would invite you, as we covenant with one another each Sunday, and through our activities and our actions, our intentional actions to be with each other, to choose this community, is to also choose one another and to grow and to be open to change. And it changed me. I understand. It took me, almost 10 years to figure this out, but I'm learning, and we will continue to learn. Thank you.
So, a mentor of mine, I was doing my internship. My internship supervisor once told me that I didn't need to like everyone in my congregation, which is really lucky. I'm not talking about you, just the person next to you. But I did have to love them. Don't have to like them, but I do have to love you. And I would say that that is also true for all of you. You don't have to vibe with everyone here, but you do have to love them. In fact, that's the whole point. We're here to create a reality based on love. Love rather than affinity. A love capable of holding the diverging personalities and by that holding, transform proximity into compassion. Transform proximity into affection, into agape and joy. To prove it possible and model it for the whole world and for our descendants. We want to be a model that other people and our progeny can look to see how to do this thing. So our covenant is meant to secure a field in which that reality of love can happen. It is meant to foster the beloved community. And that's it. That's like my whole reflection. The rest, from this point forward, is just details and context. Maybe a flourish or two. And so if you stay past this point, you're really just religion nerds. Okay, so you're staying? Nerds. But nerds for love. So here's the thing. As beings on this planet, in all our particular eco-ranges and anthropologies, we are each and all part of larger organisms that we depend upon. We depend upon the ecosphere just as the biomes within us depend on our being alive. They keep us alive in order that they might live. As a person, you are a community of beings. The smaller organisms within the larger organism do not necessarily have to like each other. Do not have to agree on everything. Your liver and lungs have different roles. But they do have to agree on one thing. Without the whole, each will wither, and each is important to keeping the whole alive. So this is the essential agreement. Thus it is with the earth. It is the substrate upon which Holy Covenant rests, to honor the whole and not compromise its integrity via harm against its component interdependent beings or their collective sum. This is the way it is with the earth, and this is the way it is with this congregation. We are a whole organism. We call it beloved community. And in this way, Unitarian Universalism particularly is in harmony with the very processes of the earth itself. Did you know that? Maybe you did on some conscious level. Maybe that shoeless librarian lost in your soul's ancestral archives knows it. Maybe you knew that your participation in this community, in and of itself, is a kind of ongoing ritual that embodies your reverence for life in order to align us with its prerogatives. And believe it or not, that is why we have policies and procedures, to assure that we maintain the whole. That is why we have process, to ensure balance of power. That is why we have committees, teams, roles, and an org chart. And it's why we need covenant. Happily, we do not do dogma to orient us. We do not do creed to bind us. We have no test of faith. And do not prescribe divine vocabularies and metaphors that you deploy to render the world meaningful. We have none of that. Can I get a rock on? Rock on. We only have our mutual promises, our covenant. Without covenant, we would have no map, no orientation. We would be beholden to fashion or fear or self-worship, and I tell you, I have seen it. Without covenant, it is easy to get lost as a people. It is hard to be a people, in fact. I'm reminded of a time when I was a kid, and to earn some merit badge or other, our scout leader gave us the task of getting back to camp after leading us into the wilderness at night. And we tried to remember the way. We consulted and argued, and it was all the leader could do to keep us together, much less from going in the wrong direction or turning on one another. Finally, someone noticed the North Star, and just like that, we began to find our orientation. We agreed on our direction and eventually found our way home. So the beloved community needs a North Star, an attractor, something beyond community in a way, by which to orient ourselves. And covenant can serve this North Star purpose very well. Covenant articulates our intention. As I mentioned last week, covenant is connective. And as connection, it becomes a conduit. It becomes a medium of relationship and communion. And not just with each other, but certainly with each other. But not just with each other, but in fact with the whole world. If we do not have that North Star, that call, that intention that expresses our values, what's left is our informal relationships with each other. And it's a common UU congregational puzzle because in lieu of central theology, interpersonal relationships often become the backbone of congregational life. And while friendship is absolutely necessary to bringing about the beloved community, it cannot be its orienting attractor. If it is, we will never bring about beloved community. I want to emphasize friendship is necessary, but if it is central, it forms a webwork over time that becomes difficult for newcomers to penetrate. The shared past becomes a bulwark as it, rather than mission, forms the core of the community and repels those it hopes to attract. Further, when interpersonal relationship rather than values are at the center, power is easily leveraged to status rather than mission. And we accidentally enshrine class rather than spirit. I'll say it again. When interpersonal relationship rather than value is our center, power is leveraged to status rather than mission. And we accidentally enshrine class rather than spirit. Conversely, centering values, as in covenant, and reflecting those values in our institutional processes makes for a less interpersonally contingent scene, which somewhat ironically fosters love and inclusion. So I think this all sounds pretty attractive, but this word covenant, I know some people can have a little bit of an issue with it. What does it mean? It sends off some like trauma alarm bells from past religious experience. Why do we use this word? Okay, so simply put, covenant is a set of mutually upheld promises that we make to one another. Historically, and the reason why we use that word, we trace it back to our Hebraic roots, though it likely predates the ancient Yahwists. The God of Abraham trucked in promises. And these covenants made between the Hebrews and their God established how the divine and we mortals behave in relation to one another for our mutual flourishing, right? That's the relationship that Kathleen was talking about. So that kind of shared promise, by the way, was not unique to the Hebrews. Traditions from every corner of the earth have some set of agreements with the life force, right? Like whatever name you want to call it, the thing that serves to maintain the universe, from Aztec to Confucian, from Sikh to Ute, covenant abounds in all these traditions by different names perhaps, and covenants like these ensure that the universe will maintain not so much the status quo really, but its trajectory. The importance of covenant reemerged in earnest for us in our tradition's story many centuries after the first Hebraic covenant. As the Bible was translated into local languages, the rate of literacy climbed, and the number of folks who could extrapolate meaning from text soared. This threatened the central authority, it eroded the central authority, and without the central authority of an ecclesiastical elite, it was theological anarchy, which sounds great. But individual interpretation threatened to atomize the tradition, potentially turning the power of religious conviction over to the hands of self-serving and influential and sometimes wrong-headed people, which is exactly what the folks reading the Bible were trying to escape in the ecclesiastical authority of the Roman Church. Right? So there's a little bit of a puzzle there. How could we remain accountable without centralized authority? How would we guard against the corruption of our newfound freedom? We would return to promises. Promises to the divine and, importantly now, to each other. We would make covenant to hold each other in care formally. Covenant became a way to replace power with accountability. It gives relationship authority. Given then that covenant is first and foremost a deep bow to relationship, we should be aware, happily, that it smuggles in an implication, a lingering resonance from the old understanding with the holy. So it is that in human-to-human covenant, we are implicitly recognizing the divine nature of one another. It may be that without each other, we lose sight of the holy, and without an orientation to the holy, we lose sight of each other. I would offer that a human-to-human covenant may also serve as a model and map for a covenant with the non-human. For the inherent holiness of you and I, that covenant honors is no different than the inherent holiness emanating from a leaf or a tree, a forest, an ecosphere, a planet. So our covenant with each other can be a map and a model for our covenant with the world. And crafting a covenant that centers relationship engages in a kind of sorcery. We turn a statement of values, hopes, and procedures into a vehicle of spiritual practice and connection, a medium of connection with each other and with the roiling life force in which we come to be and into which we recede. So we make promises to bind us, to keep us true, to keep this body and this body as safe and empowering as possible. We covenant to create a kind of intention and discipline, a structure in which freedom is made responsible and vulnerability made transformative. You maybe thought you were coming just for the music, which is not a bad reason to come, but you secretly are coming to participate in this agreement. Now, having said all that, I'd like you to take a look at you got a handout as you came in today. This is All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church's collective vision of beloved community, which includes a covenant on page 2, right? It includes explicitly a covenant on page 2. Now, as I read this, to me, the covenant portion on page 2 reads almost like a right relations procedure. And while that is well and good, it's not particularly sexy. But it is necessary to have something like that somewhere, right? The key, though, I think, is that this covenant that you have in your hands now claims as its purpose the fostering of an atmosphere where UU principles can be practiced. And I think with just a little bit of license, we can also understand that the entirety of the collective vision of beloved community that precedes and includes the named covenant, in other words, pages 1 and 2, are implicitly part of the covenant. And to me, that balances the procedural with some soul, because there is some soul in the preceding paragraphs, I think. So take this home, have a look at it, put it in your pocket, forget about it, pull it out a couple days later. Refer to it in your committee meetings, hang it on your refrigerator, refer to it in your grocery shopping and nature walking. It's a lot of words. A lot of words. The task I've given myself in light of that is to kind of simplify it all into something that is, if more generalized, easier to remember for us, and you will know when I have finished that task. So here it is. This business of covenant, it's not about you. It's not about keeping you safe or bridling you. It's about a new world. And you either want it or you don't. And so when you practice covenant, you are about the business of bringing a new world into being. And the hour is late. So what will it be, my friends? Shall we love? Shall we beings of beings, honor the being that we comprise? Shall we make a new world? Maybe we could think about it while we're singing. For the benediction. As we extinguish our chalice and leave this sacred place that we have assembled with our intention, our good hearts, and our love, please know that being a part of this community is a powerful thing. It's a powerful place for you to be, as it models for yourself, your friends, your loved ones. It maps and models our connection to one another, and the world centers relationship, gives it authority, and finally sets us free. Let us go in peace. Let us reprise the song we just sang.